Alrighty, just jumping in here to what I believe is the second game of this match between GRB11 and DangerKing. Both of these players are in the H division of the Dominion League, and they're playing their scheduled league match. Alright, so first let's look at the kingdom. So we've got draw, library can draw up to 7 cards, which draws, action, just festival, trashing, no real trashing. Mine can trash coppers into silvers or golds. And then plus buy, we've got festival, and that's about it. So what are we doing here? Well, with no way to trash curses, which seems like it's going to be a key card here. I think you want to get to which as soon as possible and try to give out a majority of those curses. To that end, I think probably Poacher Silver would be the best opening. Silver also reasonable, with the idea of maybe get 2 or 3 witches, start cursing, and then I'd think about the rest of my game plan after that happens. Let's see what they do. Poacher Silver from both, I like that. And then DangerKing hits 5 turn 3, gets a witch, makes sense. GRB misses 5 by the Poacher, that seems fine. Yeah, so they both got a witch going into their next reshuffle. Alright, so turn 5, DangerKing gets a gold, and GRB gets a mine. I don't love either of these choices. Buying gold seems really weak. That could be a witch, could be an artisan with the intent to gain a witch, could even just be like a festival or something. I don't like having a gold very much in your deck. There's still curses to be given out, and you can increase the number of curses you give out by adding more witches, adding ability to gain witches, adding festivals to play multiple witches per turn, etc. I like the action cards here enough that I don't really want more golds right now. Likewise, I don't like mine very much. You know, it's technically a trasher, and usually trashing is good, but you're not actually getting your deck any thinner. Turning a copper into a silver it doesn't reduce the number of stop cards in your deck, doesn't help you play your action cards any more often. Mine's usually a pretty weak card for that reason. So likewise, I don't think I'd pick up mine here. Got a festival, still alright, but when you only have 1 terminal action card in your deck, namely witch, I think you could add another village before adding your second terminal action, like get witch, festival, witch. I'd go ahead and just get 2 witches, especially when your deck has no trashing yet, or in this kingdom at all. Having 2 terminal action cards is fine before you add your first village, just because there's a good chance you'll find those on separate turns, in which case you don't necessarily need the village first to avoid that collision. Artisan I don't dislike. DangerKing gets another gold. Were they the one for the first gold? Yeah, they were. Still not loving the golds. There's still curses not yet given out. I wouldn't get the gold yet. Province already, again, seems way too early to province. With curses out and no trashing, my number 1 priority is to give out curses. Another gold, still dislike gold, still dislike province, and we're now caught up, and somehow provinces have been bought and gold's been bought. Both of those seem like a mistake to me. You know, I don't even start thinking about those cards until curses are out. Not in a kingdom with no trashing, at least. The curses are going to be super, super important here. I don't like how frequently they're buying provinces. Other cards to talk about. Bureaucrat, generally weak card, no exception here. Gaining silvers is like an okay effect at best. You often don't want a lot of silvers. Its attack is pretty weak. And if there's ever key 5 cost cards like Witch around, you don't want to open a Bureaucrat because the turn you're playing it, it's sort of actively hindering your ability to hit 5. You know, it itself doesn't give you any coins or any benefit the turn you play it. So you get it turn 1, then maybe turn 4, you find it, you play it, you gain a silver. Then on that 3rd reshuffle, you're finally finding that silver. It's taken a while to pay off. I'd want something with more immediate benefit, like buying the silver directly, that helps you get 5 cost cards in your deck sooner. Merchant, alright here. They have silvers. It's kind of like Poacher. Both of them are +1 card, +1 action, and give you +1 coin. Of course, the benefit of Merchant is it will never force you to discard cards. The drawback is you have to line it up with a silver for it to work. That's okay. I could consider getting it over silver in some circumstances here once I already had a few silvers in my deck. Workshop can often be a good card. Usually if there's a lot of key 3 and 4 cost cards in the kingdom that you want. Not seeing that here. Again, this kingdom seems very oriented towards get the 5 cost cards, get them quickly, play them often. And Workshop, much like Bureaucrat, is going to get in your way of that goal. You want to get the 5 cost cards early. Getting a gainer actively undermines that because it's getting in your way of finding silvers and coppers and stuff. So I wouldn't take Workshop here. Harbinger. Harbinger, I think, is best in weak kingdoms, especially kingdoms with no trashing and lots of junk. Usually it's kind of weak, but this is the kind of kingdom where I could easily see getting Harbinger, especially towards the late game here. Because you got a deck that's got like 25, 30 cards in it, and only a few of value, like your golds, your witches, your artisans, etc. And you're somewhere like this. You're like maybe 13 cards left in your deck. A Harbinger here is nice, because if you had one of those cards earlier on, like turn 1 or turn 2 of your shuffle, and you've already played it into your discard, you can use Harbinger to top deck that gold again and see it a second time in the same shuffle of your deck. So you're seeing your key cards twice as often. And so this is kind of like ideal scenario for Harbinger, is games like this where you have thick decks, lots of turns between shuffles. Harbinger can let you play those cards, the key cards, 2 or 3 times before you reshuffle your deck. Now, be back in just 1 second. Alrighty, back now. I think I was just talking about Harbinger. Harbinger is much weaker in strong kingdoms, because if you're drawing your deck effectively, what's going to happen is most turns you probably won't have a discard pile. You'll draw through your deck, then next turn you'll reshuffle your deck, and you'll have all the cards in your deck, none in the discard pile to look through. And so Harbinger is less good the more often you draw your deck. It looks like DangerKing is about to win this one. I'm not exactly sure where that happened. They both started strong in the opening. I think, Poacher Silver and a Witch was the right play. And then on turn 5, I didn't like the direction either of them took. So, Artisan makes sense to me over Gold. I like this in the abstract. If you're using Artisan to gain some more Festivals and Witches and play those more frequently. But it doesn't really look like GRB is doing that. Their next 5 was not a witch. It's like Festival and Mine and stuff. And if you're not going for multiple witches, I'm not sure what the benefit is of having extra action cards. Yeah, I think this game should have been decided by the curse split. It feels like neither of them prioritized that very much. I'm not exactly sure how DangerKing pulled ahead. Given that the points are still relatively close, it might just be a matter of player 1 advantage. Player 1's got a slight advantage, and DangerKing is player 1 in this scenario. You can easily tell because player 1 is always in red, player 2 is always in blue. So DangerKing, if they don't hit 8, should definitely buy a duchy here. It's important to stay more than 6 points ahead. If DangerKing buys a gold or something here, that'd be a pretty big mistake because then GRB could buy a province and win 34 to 33. If you keep more than 5 points ahead, more than 6 points ahead, now GRB can't buy the province because even if they buy the province, they're losing. I don't like top decking the curse there. Hitting 7 doesn't help you. Duchies are already out. Can you even afford to buy estates? You can't afford to buy 2 estates, because then if you buy 2 estates, there's only 1 estate left. Your opponent can buy the last estate and win the game. So if I'm GRB, I'm just top decking a silver to increase my chance of hitting 8 next turn and buying a single estate. Note that you can't really afford to buy no estates either, because then your opponent can buy a estate. All of a sudden, 37 to 31, they're now 6 points in the lead again. Buying province doesn't win the game for you. So I would want 1 estate, because that would give me 1 last chance next turn of potentially winning the game by buying the province. As it turns out, they wouldn't have hit it anyway. We just saw their hand, but that's your best shot at it. So DangerKing wins this. They have to buy an estate here. If they buy a state, it's now 38 to 31. GRB can't buy a state or the game ends on a 3 pile. GRB can't buy province or they'll lose 37-31. So this seems like a very clear state buy. They bought a gold. I don't like that as much. You're giving your opponent the chance to tie it up. As it happens, GRB does not have a hand to hit 8. But GRB could buy a province here and tie the game. The way ties work in Dominion is if the points are tied at the end of the game, after player 2's turn, it's a true tie. The points would be like 0.5 each. Neither person wins, they both tie. They'd go down as a tie for both players. If the game is tied after player 1's turn, then player 2 wins. Under the grounds of if you ended up with the same amount of points and one player took one less turn to get there, then they did the better playing. So, like if the game somehow ended at the end of DangerKing's turn, at 37 each, it would be a tie. But GRB is player 2. So if DangerKing leaves a situation where GRB can buy the last province and end the game at 37 each, then they're leaving open the possibility of their opponent tying instead of losing. So now they're buying a state. This is better. They should have done this previous turn. Because the game is now outside of GRB's reach. I mean, theoretically, if GRB had like all the cards lined up in the right order, they could get 2 buys from Festival. If they hit like 10, they could buy province, a state, and still tie the game. But that's really unlikely. And there's definitely no way they could conceivably win this game now. There's just not enough points left to go around. I'll be back in a second for the start of game 2. Alrighty, so we got a new kingdom here. Let's look at this one. So, draw, got witch, got moat, action, throne room here, can function as a village, trashing, you got chapel, moneylender, plus buy, there's no plus buy, but there are gains with artisan. So here again we have witch, which early game can be pretty significant. There's crystals to give out, but we have a very strong trasher in the form of chapel, so I don't think it's going to be as game defining. What do you do here? If you want to build, and I think you probably do, the way you could build an engine here is you get witch or moat for draw, and then you get a lot of throne rooms. Throne room would be the very key card here for drawing, because it's the source of plus action, and then you play a deck that has a few witches, a few moats, a bunch of throne rooms, some merchants, and then an artisan or 2 at the end of that. And then the goal would just be to draw your deck. You want to hit 8 in coins. There's no value in having more than 8 coins total in your deck in this kingdom because there's no plus buy. So if you have 8 coins in your deck and you can hit, and if you draw your deck and hit 8, you can buy a province. And that's the best thing your deck can conceivably want to buy. You can't buy multiple, so there's no point having more than that. And then the extra gains that come off of artisan. So the goal of my deck, I think, would be to have 8 coins worth, and then to hit 8 and have an artisan to continue building / gain duchies. And then that's the way that would go. Now opening here, you definitely open chapel. No question, chapel's 100% a turn 1 or turn 2 buy. It's just incredibly strong trasher, one of the strongest cards in the game, arguably the strongest card in base set, and it just gets your deck thin so fast. So I'm opening chapel. What are you getting with it? Options are, chapel, silver is always a solid choice. Silver gives a little bit of economy, so when you get trashed, you have something to buy cards with. I think chapel militia is probably the better opening. So, you have 2 terminal action cards in your deck, and so you're a little sad if chapel and militia run into each other, and you find both in the same turn because you don't get to play both. But that's not such a huge drawback here, because that's going to be true of pretty much whatever card you add. If you add silver and you find chapel and silver, the correct play is just going to be to play chapel, trash 3 cards, and ignore the silver anyway. So if I'm buying silver instead of militia, it's sort of functionally terminal in the same way of if I see both the same turn, I don't get to play it anyway. So I think I'd go ahead and add the chapel militia, because if you find them both on separate turns, you're in a really good spot. Part of what makes militia so good is if you can get that militia attack in the turn before your opponent plays the chapel, it really shuts down the opponent's ability to trash. Right? If they have a 3-card hand with chapel in it, they're trashing 2 cards. If they have a 5-card hand with chapel in it, they're trashing 4 cards. And so I'd love to get a militia in before my opponent plays chapel. That also makes militia especially good if you're player 1, because you're more likely to find your militia before they find their chapel than if you're player 2. Now let's see. So GRB open chapel militia. I like that better. DangerKing open militia silver. That's, I don't know about that. I mean, you can't afford to not get chapel. And if you want chapel, you want it as soon as possible. There's no reason to delay chapel here. GRB goes into Witch. That's fine. You know, Witch isn't going to be like dominant like it was in the previous game. But definitely no harm in getting a Witch here, getting some curses in. DangerKing gets Chapel turn 3. Better late than never. Oh no, this is a huge mistake. So GRB has a perfectly fine turn here. In their hand, they've got Chapel, Estate, 3 coppers. Correct play, no question, is just trash all 4 of those cards. You don't want coppers in your deck. You don't want estates in your deck. Those are bad cards. They're getting you away with good cards. I would, in a heartbeat, jump at any chance to trash 3 coppers in one turn. GRB not only doesn't trash the coppers, they then use those coppers to buy another stop card in their deck, silver, making their deck thicker. You 1000% want to trash all those cards. This is certainly an error. Buying coppers there. Trash your starting cards, no question. That's the main reason you get Chapel. If you're only using the Chapel to trash 1 estate, you haven't actually made your deck any thinner, right? You replaced 1 stop card in estate with another stop card at Chapel. You're missing out on the vast majority of Chapel's value. DangerKing now gets a Witch. That seems fine. Now, they are getting pretty heavy on terminals, right? They've got Witch, they've got Militia, they've got Chapel. So the next thing I'm going to be wanting is to add some Throne Rooms and Cantrips, so I can play all that. You can get a Village effect in this kingdom using Throne Room. And I think people might not always be aware of this if they're kind of new to the base set and maybe aren't really quite familiar with how Throne Room works. Throne Room functions as a village because you spend 1 action playing it, and then you get the effect of playing an action card twice. So you're getting 2 action card plays out of spending 1 action, which is essentially what a village lets you do. So one way to think about that is, how could I play 2 witches? Well, I could have a village and 2 witches. I can play a village, get an extra action, then play both witches. And I get me 2 witch plays in a single turn. Or I could just have a throne room and a witch. I could play the throne room and use its effect to play the witch twice. Same thing, I'm getting 2 witch plays in a single turn. So throne room functions as a village that way. But it can even function as a village when there's no village and you're wanting to play 2 different action cards. Like let's say I want to play a witch and a militia and get both attacks in. What I could do is take one of these action neutral cards like Harbinger, where it costs an action to play, gets you an action back. Harbinger or Merchant aren't normally villages, right? +1 action here doesn't really mean you're up in actions, because if you spent an action to play it, you're just breaking even. But what if I throne room a Harbinger or I throne room a Merchant? Well, think about it this way. I've got a hand of 5 cards. I got a throne room, a Merchant, and let's say 3 treasures. I play the throne room to play the Merchant twice. My hand's now down to 3 cards. The throne room and the Merchant have left my hand. I then draw 2 cards because I get the Merchant effect twice, and I get +2 actions. Well, I went down to 0 actions playing the throne room. I'm now up to 2 actions, and I went down to 3 cards. I'm now up to 5 cards. So I now have a 5-card hand again, back to where I started in terms of draw, but I have 1 more action than I did before. Because although I spent 2 cards to draw 2 cards, I only spent 1 action in that little interaction, and I got 2 actions out of it. And so now I have +2 action, and if I had a militia and a witch in my hand, I can play both of those. So you can get a village effect here by throne rooming a card like Merchant or Harbinger, which can allow you to play 2 different terminal actions in the same turn, which is kind of what you want to do. So that's what these decks really should be going, is get a bunch of throne rooms for the key village effect, and you can throne room witch to get multiple witch plays. That's good on its own. You can throne room militia to get multiple militia plays. But also, if you want to play both of those in the same turn, what you're going to want to be doing is throne rooming a Harbinger or a Merchant. And so my ideal deck composition here, I think, has like 1 silver, because I'll need that to activate my Merchant, and then a bunch of Merchants, like 5 or 6, however many, to be able to hit 8, right? It can't, silver plus 6 Merchants would hit 8, but you could also afford to have fewer than 6 Merchants if you throne room some of the Merchants, because you get this effect twice. So like silver and 3 Merchants that all get throne roomed would also hit 8. So you have that for your payload. You got a bunch of throne rooms and some witches / moats to draw with. You have a militia to attack your opponent. You don't need multiples because they don't stack. And then you have like an artisan, maybe 2, just to gain you extra cards per turn, because that's the only way I'm getting all that stuff efficiently. And then you trash all the coppers and estates, and all the curses. So let's get back caught up again. So here we were talking about they've got a bunch of terminal cards. GRB's adding a throne room. That seems nice. Gold, strongly disliked. There is absolutely no reason you should ever want a gold in this kingdom. Like we said, you only need to hit 8, and you're already going to have a silver, and you're already going to want a bunch of merchants as targets for your throne rooms. That's already enough to get to 8 coins in your deck. Gold is not really helpful toward that end. That $6 buy should be an artisan. Could consider a witch or a throne room as well, but artisan could gain you those. So I would definitely buy an Artisan on 6 here. G buys another silver. Again, I don't like that. I don't want lots of treasure in my deck. That's going to make it harder for me to draw my deck. I can hit 8 perfectly fine with just a single silver and some merchant plays and a militia attack. That'll easily get me to 8 or higher. So I don't need extra silvers. It's getting in my way of playing my witch more often. Moat seems fine. Moat's a perfectly valid addition. Merchant seems fine. DangerKing here is using Chapel appropriately. So we saw they were actually worse about opening with it. They didn't buy it turn 1 or 2, which is, I think, a huge error. But when they finally did get around to drawing it, albeit quite late in the game, they did trash 2 coppers and an estate. Obviously, they couldn't trash all 4 because the other card was a militia. This is definitely the correct play given the hand they had. And this is what GRB should have been doing with their Chapel. GRB gets another gold. Again, strongly dislike that. D adds a Throne Room. Throne Room seems like a good card here. I'd really want to have as many Throne Rooms as my opponent let me have. I'd be happy to take all the Throne Rooms in this kingdom. It's like the central card. There's all sorts of cards I'd be happy to play multiple times. You can Throne Room Witches for extra draw, Throne Room Moats for extra draw, Throne Room Harbingers or Merchants for extra action, Throne Room Artisan for extra gains, and so forth. Gold, still don't like gold. Buying Province already, again, seems too early for Province to me. I want to get my engine up and running, and they certainly are not at that stage yet. More golds and more golds. I mean, at some point, I guess, if you're at this point in the game, you've already bought a bunch of golds. You've kind of given up on any hope of building a good engine here. And so if you're playing big money, I guess you might as well continue along that track and buy more golds. But certainly, I think this is kind of the wrong path to go down. I think they underestimated the strength of this engine in this kingdom. With Chapel as strong trashing, even with curses, you're going to be able to build a perfectly fine engine here. So I think we're about caught up. A second militia. I don't think DangerKing really needs a second militia. What you really want is a deck that's running well enough that you can play that one militia you have every single turn. And that means getting real trashed and thin and drawing real effectively. And one militia will be more than enough once you get there. Definitely the right play there was trash the curse in both coppers. No question DangerKing made the right move. We're now at turn 14. It's sad to me that there's still 8 Throne Rooms left in the pile. I still think that's the key card here. I don't want lots of treasures. I just want lots of actions, lots of Throne Rooms to play all those actions. But of course that's not the decks they're building. They're just kind of building simple big money. And again, in a kingdom with Chapel, you should be super thin. You can get very thin very fast as soon as turn 7 or 8 with Chapel. You get 2 good Chapel plays off, maybe trash 8 of your starting cards in 2 shuffles. All of a sudden your deck's got 5 cards in it and you're running real smoothly. We're now at turn 15 and you can see DangerKing still got coppers, GRB still got coppers. There's only 2 estates trashed among the 6 between them. Only 5 coppers trashed of the 14 between them. And of the 9 curses given out, only 2 have been trashed. So the decks are still quite ridden with junk. And that suggests that they're both underplaying their Chapel. DangerKing because they got theirs late. GRB because they play it and they don't trash all the cards with it. I would prioritize trashing above almost all else. Usually it's priority number 1 in any game. It also is super important, right? If you know you're going to have curses coming in with your opponent's witch around, if you can get trashed early, right? You get your deck thin fast and it's already running. You can trash those curses as soon as they come in, right? If you're drawing through your deck, then at the end of each turn, you just play your Chapel and trash the 1 new curse that you got, maybe 2 new curses if they Throne Roomed it. And those curses are going to hurt very much. But if you don't already have your deck under control, once those curses are starting to come in, then those are going to further undermine your ability to trash because they're thickening your deck, you're seeing your Chapel less often, your engine's kicking off less often, and so a deck that's not already under control is going to be further hamstrung by those curses. And so certainly with a Junker, even more so, even if I didn't already want to trash all my cards ASAP, I would doubly want to do so with Witch around. How'd the curse split end up? Let's see. G gains a curse. So it looks like DangerKing won the curse split 6-4, which, unlike the previous game, that's not as game defining. The previous game with no trashing, winning the curse split struck me as just arguably the single most important thing about that kingdom. Curses are junk cards that you can't get rid of, and they're -1 VP. That was going to define the game. Here, curse split 6-4 isn't necessarily the thing that will win the game, but it's still something that definitely in DangerKing's favor, and especially when they're not fully trashed. Here's GRB. I guess he just trashed the estate and the curse. You really shouldn't have estates left turn 18. Suggests that they're underutilizing their Chapel pretty substantially. I guess they're deliberating between playing the militia and playing the chapel. I'd definitely play the chapel. I mean, obviously they can't see their opponent's hand, but if we look at their opponent's hand, we see the militia attack wouldn't even happen to do anything. They could just discard, 2 victory cards. But like, I wouldn't be unhappy buying a moat, I guess, but it's not like a crucial card to buy. I'd rather just trash it. All right, they did eventually decide upon the correct play. That's good. Okay, so now we can kind of see how big their decks are. DangerKing's got 22 cards. GRB has 25. That's still pretty thick. That's not a good sign. You want a nice thin deck. At this point, I can't really criticize further gold buys. They're already, I think, past the point of being able to dream of building an engine. And so gold's plausibly the best thing for the deck right now. Certainly in the abstract, I wouldn't want a deck that's just buying lots of golds here. I don't think my ideal deck has a single gold in it. Now note, because they're so thick, they're already close to 30 cards. There's a good chance that Gardens will be as good as Duchy, if not better, in this kingdom. If you hit a deck with 30 cards, Gardens is functionally just like a $4 Duchy instead of a $5 Duchy. Theoretically, if they get up to 40 cards, which conceivable here, my guess is the decks will probably end up somewhere between 30 and 40 because they're both beginning cards and trashing a few other curses. But theoretically, if it gets up to 40, then the Gardens could be worth even more than Duchies. Neither of them has an Artisan. That's a little unfortunate. Part of the reason why I think the engine looks so appealing to me here, and why I would try to build up to drawing my deck with Throne Room, Witch, Moat, etc., is because although there's only one buy, and your deck will never do more than buying 1 province per turn, an engine can reliably draw through and find its Artisan every turn. And so what you could be doing each turn is, say, Province Duchy, or Province Gardens, where you're gaining the Duchy or the Gardens with your Artisan. And so, because there's that extra gain around, an engine that can reliably draw through and play an Artisan every turn is going to be scoring around 9 points per turn, as opposed to around 6. And so there's definitely room to do better than just buying a province per turn because of the existence of that Artisan. You remove Artisan from that kingdom, and it's probably not worth building an engine because you're only buying 1 card per turn, which A means you can't get the engine online fast enough because it'll take more turns to add all the components, and B means the best case scenario is you're scoring 6 points per turn anyway. So that Artisan, I would just play like Witch big money, buy some witches, give some curses, and then buy the rest treasures and just start buying provinces. But because Artisan's here, even if you don't have plus buy, you can be adding 2 or 3 more cards to your deck each turn. And you throw them in Artisan, you can get 2 extra cards plus your buy, and that both gives you enough gains to get an engine running quickly, and enough ability in the late game to score more than a province per turn. If you're doing like province plus 2 duchies or province plus 2 gardens. Back in a second. Alrighty, I'm back. I was gonna say why didn't they trash the curse, but they were out of action, so that made sense. They couldn't play that chapel even if they wanted to. Now that being said, I think in this scenario, here's an example of where you could have done the thing I was describing earlier, which is if you Throne Room the Merchant, you get 2 actions, and then you can play the Witch, and you'll still have an action left over to play, say, Chapel, even after the Witch is drawn, because you'll have +1 action left over. And so if they played Throne Room a Merchant, then played Witch, they could have played the Chapel and trashed the curse. So at this point in the game, I'd be buying duchies over golds. There's only 3 provinces left, so the points are going to be very important. There's a good chance if you bought a gold here, say for GRB next turn, that the game might end before you even drew through your next 15 cards and found that gold again. So I would absolutely buy duchy here. It's also very important to have a points lead. Yeah, so they bought the right thing. It's important to have a points lead when there's 2 provinces left, because if you're at the point where there's 2 provinces and you're ahead in points, you can buy that second to last province. So like, let's say we're GRB's turn right now. They can buy that province and go up to 27 points. And they know that their opponent can't touch the last province because then that would just be 26 points and they would lose. If you're behind in points, all of a sudden, you're the one who can't buy the second to last province. If it's 18 to 20 and I hit 8, and if it's 18 to 20 and I hit 8, I can't buy that province. They give me 24 points because then my opponent can buy the last province and they'll win 26 to 24. So you always want to keep a points lead with those 2 provinces left. Now I noticed that GRB got 2 chapels. I guess the spirit's there. You know, you want chapels to get thin, but you almost never want 2 chapels. That's almost always a misplay. 1 chapel early in the game is more than enough to get you trashed. Trashing 4 cards at a time is just phenomenal as an effect. I think newer players just underestimate how incredibly massive trashing 4 cards in 1 turn is. Like, your deck just gets so thin so fast. So you just use one chapel effectively at the start, you will never need a second chapel. And so almost never do you get 2 chapels. Usually you get 1 chapel like 95% of the time, and then maybe there's like 4% of the time you get 0 chapels because there's something else around like donate that's better, and 1% of the time you get 2 chapels for some weird reason. But yeah, almost always you get 1 chapel because it's the best trasher in almost all contexts, barring donate or maybe ambassador or cathedral. I think could stand up to chapel as being better trashers. And then 1 chapel will get your whole deck completely trashed. This is a nice place to see Harbinger. So DangerKing is going to get to Throne Room Harbinger and top deck 2 key cards. So if I'm them, I'm top decking gold for sure, because that lets you hit 8. And then whatever they top deck next, they're not going to be able to see this turn. So this should set up for next turn, which probably just means top decking another gold at this point. Militia's fine as well. I think Militia's a perfectly fine card to top deck. I like buying Province here. So DangerKing's player 2, and they're tied in points. So if GRB tries to buy, I mean they can't anyway, but if they tried to buy a Province here, they would also have 28 points. But if the game ends 28 to 28 on GRB's turn, GRB would lose. They're player 1, and so if the game ends on a tie after player 1's turn, player 2 wins because they tied while taking fewer turns to get there. GRB had 25 turns, D took 24. So GRB can safely take a province when they're tied in points, because they know if their opponent takes a province, the opponent loses. So this definitely be a duchy, no question. No, Gardens, that's fine too. Yeah. They actually, are they at 40 cards yet? I don't think they're quite at 40 cards, but Gardens, if they're over 30 cards, then there's no reason to take Duchy over Gardens. Gardens is actually quite reasonable there. Under the argument that maybe you hit 40 and then eventually Gardens becomes better than Duchy. All right. They might. So they have 4 here. 2 from the Merchant, 2 from the Silver. They hit 6. Just another Gardens. They could just play the Chapel, trash Curse by Gardens. I think I'd value getting that Militia attack enough. As it happens, it's not really going to affect DangerKing because they have 2 provinces in hand, but there's no way GRB could know that. I think, given how late it is in the game, playing the Militia to get that attack in seems more valuable than getting that 1 extra Curse trash in. God's Eye View, trashing the Curse was better because the Militia attack didn't actually hurt DangerKing. Obviously, GRB doesn't know that, and so the Militia play made sense. So this can't quite be a win for DangerKing. If they had a silver, if they had a gold in their discard, they could have top decked gold and hit 8. But as we can see here, they didn't have any golds. In fact, so we got Duchy. GRB gets to trash a Curse here, which is good, and by Gardens. It's getting real down to the wire. If one of their decks hits 8, they win. Yeah, by Gardens makes sense. Unfortunate place to see Harbinger. So Harbinger will draw first and then trigger a shuffle. Now there's nothing in the discard and Harbinger's effect can't work. We can now see how many cards they have though. They had like 32-ish cards. So Gardens and Duchy are still equivalent for them. This game probably won't run long enough for Gardens to be worth 4, but conceivably we could reach that point. GRB has 29, 30, 35 cards. Maybe GRB could get to 40 cards. I mean, well, as it turns out, they hit 8, so guess that's not happening. Going into game 4, I believe. Yeah, they're going to game 4. The third one I've commentated, but there was one game that I didn't make it to. All right, what do we got here? Draw, we got Smithy can draw. Library can also draw. Witch can draw, plenty of draw. Villages, the only village here is village. Trashing, moneylender can trash coppers, remodel can trash estates, or curses, that might be relevant. Plus buy, we got market, we can also gain cards with artisan. They are correct that you should alternate. It looks as though DangerKing has been player 2 twice, because they're blue here, blue here. They are correct about that. What's really important is that you play 3 as player 1 and 3 as player 2. Oh, they don't realize that you can set it. It's in the settings, in advanced settings, you can choose the player order. And you guarantee that the correct person is first. And so what was it? They left entirely. Maybe they think they have to rejoin the lobby entirely to get a new game. Yeah. Where'd they go? Some random person joined. Sorry, Billy Vitornot. They're playing a league match. They're not looking for opponents. Maybe it's possible. I'm guessing neither of them has a subscription if they're playing base set games. I was wondering if maybe the player order option was like a subscription only thing, but it looks like they found it and they got it working, so I guess it's not. Oh, GRB is on top of things. Alrighty, getting into the 4th game of this match. 3rd recorded. Okay, so here we've got draw, smithy, moat, actions, throne room or village, trashing. You can get rid of coppers with moneylender. Crucial limitation here, though, is there is no way to gain additional cards. I mean, you can gain silvers off of bureaucrat, but silvers aren't really a crucial card. So kind of hard to build a good engine because you can only put 1 valuable card into your deck each turn in this kingdom, which is definitely going to be a pretty major limitation. So what do? Definitely could get trashed with moneylender. I think it'd probably open moneylender silver. Given that engine isn't necessarily possible here, I mean, you could even just go straight into like smithy or militia and play it very simple money-ish, not even bother trashing, just go straight for silvers and golds, and play with a few action cards, maybe like a militia or 2, a smithy or 2. Not off the table. And maybe you do even add bureaucrat here. Maybe with no other gains, your plan is just to get in like a bureaucrat attack most turns. Bureaucrat's normally a card I totally ignore, but when there's nothing else whatsoever here, I could see an argument for bureaucrat being worthwhile. But yeah, this kingdom is very much limited by the lack of gains. You throw a workshop in here, all of a sudden, perfectly good engine kingdom. You throw a festival or a market in, same thing. An artisan even. But with no ways to gain additional cards, this deck's going to be kind of capped at, you can add 1 card to your deck per turn, and that's whatever you can afford to buy. So how do they do? GRB opens library moat. DangerKing opens militia silver. I like militia silver a lot. On 5-2, I guess library is all right. I'd kind of be tempted to just open with like a moneylender or a militia anyway. I mean, library is going to be very much like a smithy here. Both of them are likely to draw you 3 cards. Library, I guess, has the slight advantage of letting you skip over action cards, which you don't necessarily want to draw if you have no actions to spend. So I don't dislike the library. It's kind of like smithy. I think if you wanted militia or moneylender on 4-3, then you probably just take militia or moneylender on 5-2 as well. I'd probably be more inclined to do that. Certainly don't think that because you have 5, you have to buy the $5 card. If the $4 card is better, you can always consider doing that. But you know, the library is not obviously wrong either. The library will be a nice counter to militia, I'll say that. You know, if you discard down to 3 cards, library will draw you up to 7 cards, whereas smithy would just draw you up to 4. Or up to 5, I mean. And so there's definitely something to be said for library if your opponent's got a militia. There's nothing amazing here, though. You know, just the limitation of there being 1 gain is really going to make this deck a little bit of a just sort of a hodgepodge of individual actions that I don't think really has time to coalesce into a strong engine. You probably add a few actions, a few treasures, then start buying provinces, and here that'll be fine. A deck that tries to build big is just not going to get there faster because both of you are getting 1 card per turn no matter how much deck control you have. I like that GRB has added a moneylender. You know, Trash and Copper is still good, even a relatively weak deck. Turn 6 still feels a little bit early for province. You know, not that you can build big here, and the best your deck's ever going to do is buy 1 province. But I mean, turn 6 is just so early. I think I'd still buy gold there even if I hit 8. And you know, I was discussing in the previous kingdom, just like, don't buy gold, there's so much better cards than gold. This is a kingdom where buying gold's totally fine. On 6, I'd probably buy gold. You know, your deck's not going to do a whole lot ever. You're perfectly fine adding a gold because the gold is just, it's doing a lot for you in 1 buy. And you've only got 1 buy. You can't really build a big engine, so no point buying actions here over gold if you can. Here I think gold is a fine buy. Yeah, like I buy gold here as DangerKing. You don't need a whole lot of actions in this deck. You're not trying to build towards an engine. It's alright to add some silvers and golds, for sure. In fact, if anything, I would be careful not to buy too many actions here. If I'm buying a bunch of terminal action cards, I need to spend a bunch of buys on villages to resolve that. And if my buy, like here, the most precious resource is your buys. You've only got 1 buy per turn. There's no other way to gain cards. I want to get a deck that can hit 8 with as few buys as possible. And building an action-heavy deck with like lots of throne rooms, villages, draw, merchants, etc. will eventually get there, but with a lot more buys. That requires more total action cards being put into your deck. And so, if buys is the limitation, not the money, then I don't want to build the engine just because it takes more total cards to get going. And so I don't want a lot of terminal action cards, because getting lots of terminal actions also requires me to buy a lot of villages, and that's going to be, you know, an entire turn to get 1 village, because the most cards I can get per turn is 1. So I'd rather just get a few terminal action cards, like 3 is often a good number for big money, maybe 4, and then spend most of my buys on silvers and golds, because that gets me to hit 8 with fewer total buys. A deck that's just got a few golds in it hits 8 pretty easily, whereas you need more total action cards. And when buy is a constraint, that's going to be a big problem. Gold here again, I think makes sense. This is good because we saw in the last few kingdoms, they really liked buying golds even when they shouldn't. So I think in this kingdom, they'll probably play it more or less appropriately because this kingdom is kind of mostly just about, you know, buy a few golds, get into the provinces. Now, how many golds does each of them have? Just put 2-2, okay. So still anyone's game. GRB's library and mode are definitely doing a pretty decent job of countering this militia. Militia is usually a nasty attack, but looks like it hasn't hurt GRB too badly. Another village, okay. Again, my ideal deck here, I think, very much opposed to the last, example with all the throne rooms and stuff. Here I don't want to be playing with all the actions. I'd rather have few enough terminal action cards. I don't need to buy villages. I don't want to be spending key buys on villages when I could be buying silvers and golds here. So this kingdom, I don't like the villages as much. I'd rather just have maybe like, something like 3 smithies, a moneylender, a militia, a library, 2 libraries, a moat. Some composition of just like a few terminal action cards, and then mostly silvers and golds, I think, is my ideal deck composition here. And then you just start in our provinces. The gold buy here, again, I think totally makes sense. Around, I think, 5 or 6 provinces left is usually about the time where you want to start buying duchies over golds if you can. So pretty soon, even $6 or $7 hands should probably just be duchies anyway. 4 could just be silver. Could be maybe smithy. I don't know exactly how many action cards DangerKing has in their deck. Vassal, Vassal is a card that it's usually kind of competing with silver. Both of them are giving you +2 coins. The downside is, let's say you had a deck that was just like, Vassal and a bunch of treasures. Vassal would be a bit worse than silver because it's cost you an action. So if you got a deck that's like 3 smithies and a bunch of treasures and a Vassal, that's worse than 3 smithies, a bunch of treasures, and a silver. You have to spend an action playing Vassal, and that's an action you could have spent playing your moneylender or your smithy or your militia, etc. So if you're playing a big money deck with just a few terminal actions and a Vassal in it, I'd much rather have the silver because the Vassal is likely to get in the way, where I draw it in the same turn as I draw like a militia and I can't play them both. Whereas the silver doesn't ever cost an action, so silver is functionally like +2 coins, +1 action, if you wanted to convert it into like action terms. Right, an action card that said +2 coins, +1 action would be sort of equivalent to silver because you have to spend an action to play it, but you'd get the action back. Silver just doesn't cost an action in the first place. So that's Vassal's drawback. Now Vassal shines in action-heavy decks. Vassal will be better than silver as payload for an engine that's got tons of actions. Because if you can line up Vassal's effect and you hit an action card on the top of your deck, you play Vassal, you discard an action card and you play it, then Vassal is better than silver because Vassal at that point is sort of functionally like +2 coins, +1 card, +1 action. Now the reason is, it's like +1 card because you're getting to play an action card from the top of your deck without having to first draw it into your hand. So you're saving 1 draw. That's why it's akin to +1 card. And you're getting to play an action card without having to spend an action to play it. So that extra action play is like the +1 action effect. So if you have a deck that's mostly action cards, then you can line up Vassal so that it always hits an action. Then Vassal becomes better than silver because it's like silver but also draws a card. +2 coins, +1 card, +1 action is better than just +2 coins, +1 action. So Vassal works very well in very action-heavy decks where you're almost always likely to hit. It also works well with cards like Sentry, which let you see the top of your deck and guarantee you play Vassal to hit an action. And so I'd get Vassal if I'm playing an engine, if I'm playing with Sentry. Those are cards that incline me towards Vassal. But without those around, if I'm playing a moneyish deck like I am here, I'd rather the silver over the Vassal. Because, for example, if you draw Vassal library, you can't use it. You've spent your action already. You draw Vassal in the same hand as your moneylender, you can't play both. That sort of thing. So given the nature of their decks and the fact that they're pretty heavily towards money and less than half of the cards are action, I'd rather have a silver that I can always play over a Vassal, which would be situational. But in a deck where it hits most of the time, the +1 draw effect of Vassal is definitely going to be worth it. All right. Looks like just another duchy. Take another gold. Yeah, it's all right. I still think duchy's better. Yeah, DangerKing's got a bunch of villages and no action cards. This is the sort of problem in building a deck that's kind of got a few actions and a few villages. Is even if you draw 2 of your terminal action cards, like a militia and a smithy in the same hand, what are the odds you also find the village in that exact hand? Not too likely. And so if you have to have a bunch of villages in your deck to guarantee you have a village in any hand where you have 2 terminal action cards, you're spending a bunch of buys on that. Village is best when you kind of got a thin deck with a lot of action cards in it, and you're going to be finding multiple actions per turn. Village is great there. Village is definitely not a weak card, but it's not a card I want in a weak deck, because Village shines when you have tons of action cards, and that seems unlikely to happen here. All right, maybe this vassal will pay off. Maybe they play a crucial action card here. Let's see how many terminal action cards they each have. So Gaines, Militia. DangerKing has the Militia. GRB has the Moneylender. Gaines a Smithy. So D has Militia and Smithy. Gaines a Library. So G has 2 libraries and a Moneylender. DangerKing has Militia, Smithy, Library. GRB has a Moat. DangerKing has a Vassal. So they each have about 4 total terminal action cards, which is a reasonable number we set for this deck. 4 is not out of the range of good amounts of terminal action cards. But then Gaines a Throne Room. G has 2 Throne Rooms. I don't love that. So first off, you've only got 4 terminal action cards in your deck. They have, what, a Moneylender, 2 libraries, a Moat, I believe. So there's not a whole lot of cards you can actually Throne Room, right? And not a whole lot of point in doing them. Plus, Throne Room and Library does absolutely nothing, right? Library draws just 7 cards. So you play Library twice, you draw to 7 cards. Then you play Library a second time, it draws you to still 7 cards. So realistically, they can't Throne Room the Library. They can Throne Room the Moneylender, but that's real risky because that only works if you happen to have Throne Room and Moneylender and 2 coppers. Otherwise, it won't help. So these Throne Rooms are only conceivably helpful if you happen to have a Moat in hand, because that's really the only target in GRB's deck. Oh no, they messed up. I'll talk about that in 1 second. In GRB's deck that could be productively Throne Roomed. So I don't like the Throne Rooms at all. And then the villages, Gains a village, G, D, G, D, D. So they both have villages. D in particular has 3 of them to GRB's 2. Again, when you only have 4 terminal action cards, adding the village isn't going to be super helpful, because the odds that you line it up with 2 terminal action cards in a deck that's got 4 total terminal actions and a bunch of treasures is not that high. I'd rather just add some more silvers and golds and be okay with the occasional terminal action collision where I have 2 in hand, rather than a deck that's got a bunch of villages and fewer treasures. That's how I'd play a Money Kingdom. So now let's go back to this hand that GRB had. They had 2 Throne Rooms, a Moat, a Library, and then 1 other card. Think for a second how you play that, and then I'll say the answer. 2 Throne Rooms, Moat, Library, 1 other card. So the answer is, you play Throne Room, to play Throne Room, to play Library, to play Moat. So the reason you do that in that order, if you Throne Room a Throne Room, you're actually getting more action plays than if you use each Throne Room to play a card separately. Let's even assume they had enough actions to cover both of those. Let's say they had 2 action. If you use 1 Throne Room to play Moat, then another Throne Room to play Library, you spent both your actions. Because you got 2 Moat plays and 2 Library plays, but you spent 1 action playing the first Throne Room, 1 action playing the second Throne Room. Alright, so it looks like GRB has sort of functionally thrown in the towel here because they bought Province despite being behind more than 6 in points. So that's game for DangerKing. Oh, maybe they didn't notice. They might not even realize that that was a loss for them. Yeah, obviously paid attention to the number of points. Anyways, going back to the point. Oh, they should remember to switch player order. They got it. Yeah, so you spent 2 actions of that. Now let's say you play Throne Room, Moat, Library. You get the same number of plays, right? You play 1 Throne Room to play the other Throne Room twice, and because you're playing that Throne Room twice, you get to play both the Moat and the Library twice. So you still get to play Moat twice and Library twice. The difference is, you only spent 1 action to do that, not 2. All of that was sort of a little chain from the initial Throne Room. You spent 1 action playing the first Throne Room, then that one played the second Throne Room twice, and then that played the Moat in the Library. So you only ever spent an action playing that first Throne Room. So one benefit is you're playing extra action cards there. You're saving yourself actions. And so if they did Throne Room, Moat, Library, they could have played both of those cards using just 1 action, which allowed them to play both the Moat and the Library. And then secondly, you want to play the Library first. Why? Well, because Moat draws you a fixed amount of cards. 2 cards no matter how much is in your hand. Library draws you up to 7. So if you play, Throne Room, Library, you're going to draw up to 7. You play Throne Room, Moat, you're going to draw yourself 4 cards. You'll already be at 7, and then Throne Room in the Library does nothing. So if you did Throne Room, Library, Moat, you would have played 4 of your 5 cards. They'd all be in play, so you have 1 card left. that library would draw you 6 cards. So you draw up to 7, and then the moat would get played twice, which would draw you 4 more cards. You'd have an 11 card hand and be super likely to hit 8. So that's definitely the better play order. All right, now let's look at this kingdom. So we've got draw, council room, smithy, library. So we got plenty of draw. Action, we got village. Trashing, we got sentry, can trash anything. Mine, we said isn't really trashing. You can turn coppers into silvers and eventually golds, which is not bad, but usually mine is not a card particularly worth getting. And I'd say it's definitely true when you have a better trasher around like sentry. They can just get rid of the coppers entirely. Then lastly, plus buy and gains. Council room can give you plus buy. You can also gain additional cards with workshop. You can also gain silvers with bureaucrat. So what are we doing here? On 5-2, I think it's kind of a clear sentry chapel opening. On 4-3, I think you'd probably do chapel silver. You could maybe chapel workshop as well. Where's the deck going? This one definitely has potential to build an engine. You want a bunch of villages. You can draw with council room and smithy. You get your plus buy from council room plays. And then you can easily build up to like double province here. I think workshop definitely should see some play here. You know, getting plus buy with council room is a little bit awkward because it's a $5 card, so you can't get too many of them. And you often get in this awkward spot of if you're trying to gain like 3 or 4 cards per turn, you might have already drawn your deck with your first council room or second council room. And if you have to play your third council room for the plus buy, every additional council room play is drawing your opponent a card. And so you don't want to play more council rooms than needed because you don't want to do that. And so given there's some 3 and 4 cost cards here, I want mainly lots of villages. I would happily pick up a workshop so I can gain those villages without spending buys. And so I'd get most of my villages off of a workshop play and then spend my buys on like council rooms and golds and stuff. And then the deck will be, you know, village, maybe 2 council rooms and like 2 smithies or so. And you can draw your deck with that and hit double province pretty soon. But first, let's talk about getting trashed. So GRB gets chapel council room. I don't love that. So council room draws you tons of cards, right? You have a hand with 4 cards plus council room. You play council room up to 8 cards. But chapel trashes all your junk cards. And so if you have a chapel in the opening, your deck's gonna get super thin super fast. You can get down to like a 4 or 5 card hand pretty easily with chapel. And so having a big draw card like council room isn't gonna be super helpful because you very well might not have 8 total cards in your deck to draw. And so the council room isn't gonna help you much. And it always has this drawback of it draws the other player a card. And so if it's not helping you, it's helping your opponent. And so I would probably just take chapel plus sentry. Sentry is almost as strong as chapel as getting trashed. You put those 2 together, and you're going to get super thin, super fast. You know, chapel, sentry, next turn you get a workshop. You'll probably be thin enough that you can play that workshop almost every turn. You likely win the split on villages. Village seems like the key card here, because there's a lot of draw, there's a lot of terminal actions. There's only 1 stack of plus action to play it all with. So I'd love to have 6 or more of the villages if I could get my hands on them. DangerKing opens chapel silver. I think that makes perfect sense in their position. Chapel workshop also makes sense. So GRB, yeah, so we already see where sentry would have been better than council room here. GRB drew both in the same hand. They obviously can't trash the council room, so they just trash the copper and 2 estates. If they drew the sentry, they could have played the sentry, trashed 2 cards, played the chapel, trashed 4 more cards. They would have gotten rid of 6 of their 10 junk by turn 3, and that would have been just amazing. DangerKing, all right. So now we're seeing them both trash as much as they can with chapel. Definitely the right play there. That's definitely better. All right. Adding a silver and a gold. It's all right. Definitely once you're getting thin, next priority is going to be make sure you can gain multiple cards per turn. And so I think the next card I really want to add for them is going to be Workshop. Now, at least one of them, which one? I think GRB. GRB does have plus buy in the form of council room. So for GRB, it's kind of all right to add some extra treasures because you can be gaining multiple cards per turn by buying them both with council room. Like here, I think I would buy Village Workshop. They just buy gold. Okay. Don't like that as much. You want to be getting multiple valuable cards in your deck per turn because that'll escalate your engine faster. It kind of feels like they're just playing Chapel into big money, which is definitely underplaying the value of Chapel. You can get a thin deck. You can build a really big engine here. On 2, maybe that's, I don't know, Century Workshop. Could be Council Room Workshop. I really want to workshop in this deck. I want to gain lots of villages. I want lots of villages. Workshop seems like the easiest way to get there. Why didn't they trash? So they should have done here is they should have trashed more of those. I'd happily trash Estate and 3 copper. Have like 7. I could buy like Village Workshop. That'd be totally fine. You just want to get real thin. Get all the coppers and estates out of your deck. Add some golds, and pretty soon you'll be hitting double province. DangerKing is already going for the provinces. I really dislike that. Turn 6, turn 8. Your deck just can't sustain that long term. If you're spending your key $8 turns buying a province instead of building, your deck is just, it's going to fizzle out real fast. You're never going to get full deck control. You're not going to be hitting 8 consistently after that because the moment you hit 8 for the first time, you started making your deck worse, right? Province decreases the quality of your deck. So if you start buying province the first turn you hit 8, you're not going to keep hitting 8. You're going to hit 8 less and less often. And so if I see 8, that's not a signal that I need to buy more provinces. It's a signal I need to add more plus buy so I can use that, or build bigger so I can hit 8 more consistently. It's almost never the right play to buy province on your first $8 turn. Now, that kingdom we saw a second ago, where there was no plus buy, no gains, no nothing, that's a kingdom where you could conceive of hitting 8, your first $8 buy. Even then we saw when you hit 8 turn 6, I still would have bought a gold. But at least there it's kind of defensible. In a kingdom like this, where there's plus buy, there's gains, you can build real big. I would not have even contemplated buying a province on either of those turns. In fact, I was talking about what I was buying. I didn't even mention province. Province is just not a card that crosses my mind. When it's that early in the game, when you have this big of an engine to be built, short-term points lead will just not stand up to an opponent who built a good deck. Not even close. Yes, I think early province is definitively a mistake. We'll see if GRB can punish that. It is worrisome to me that they both only have 1 council room and no workshops. Right, because if you want to build a big engine, see they're already feeling to hit 8. If you want to build a big engine that runs smoothly, you want to be getting a lot of cards each turn. And at the moment, most they can conceivably gain is 2 cards a turn if they play their council room. If they don't find the council room, they're buying 1 card. I really want a workshop. I want to gain lots of villages. Then I want a few council rooms so I can buy multiple golds. Then I want provinces. Only after I've done those first 2 things. Once I can get up to double province, I start thinking about buying provinces here. And again, I did say Bureaucrat's a terrible card. And Bureaucrat could even see some play here. If my opponent is being a little too greedy and greening too early and has a bunch of green cards still in hand, I would not mind playing a Bureaucrat. If the attack might actually hit, because they'll be forced to top deck those green cards. And that might be a quick way to add payload as well. You could use the Bureaucrat to gain some silvers. And then you can trash the Bureaucrat later with your Chapel or your Sentry after you've got some silvers off of it. So I could even see a case for Bureaucrat here as a key way to gain some treasures. Alright, I kind of like the place GRB's deck's going, but I think they're not doing it in quite the right order. They are building, they're getting lots of golds, but they're not maintaining deck control here, right? They've got 13 cards. How much draw power do they have in their deck? They got 3 villages and a sentry. So they've got 4 cantrips and a council room. Actually, maybe, do they have the smithy, or does their opponent have the smithy? Okay, into the smithy. Now their opponent has the smithy. Okay, so they're just cutting it close because they do have 8 draw, right? 5 naturally plus 3 extra from council room, and they have 8 stop cards, right? The 13 minus the council room minus the 4 cantrips. So if they do find their council room, they can draw their whole deck. Still, though, it's real risky because if you don't find the council room on top, you're kind of in a world of trouble, right? If you draw your golds and provinces on the top, your turn doesn't kick it off at all. So definitely in the near future, I'm looking to add some more draw. So definitely at this point, I'd be considering getting like a second council room over a gold because I want to make sure I'm drawing my deck every turn. Or even 1 council room might be fine. Maybe you say, I don't need 4 draws. Council room net draws you 3. Maybe you say, I only need +1 buy to hit double province. Maybe you buy a smithy instead of a council room, so it doesn't help your opponent. Maybe you say, I don't want to draw my opponent an extra card. I'll just take a smithy. That's also defensible. But definitely in this situation, I'm wanting more draw cards. Okay, so GRB is in a good spot here. They should just buy province council room. Province duchy, I think, is probably better. No. So consideration is, supposing DangerKing hit 8, or they'd be up to 26, or they'd be up to 28 points because they'd buy a province, and then you would need to hit province duchy next turn, which would be 9 points. So if you need to beat 26, you need to get 27. You'd need to be at 18 points. Yeah, you didn't need the duchy. I would in that situation, what I would want to do is buy one province and then buy a council room, which would increase my odds of drawing. Now if I draw my deck, I know I've got at least 17 coins, so I could buy like province, duchy, estate, and that would be enough to win. Buying the duchy is not bad, but now what happens if you don't find your council room? If you find your council room, you can hit 16 and buy both provinces and win. But you didn't really need the duchy yet, I don't think. I think what you needed to do is make sure your deck draws one more turn. So I would have added another council room there for sure. So now GRB is in a tough spot. There's 11 cards down there. Only one of them's council room. They didn't find it. Here, at this point, I think you might just buy duchy. You know you got your council room coming up. You don't need to add a second council room because it's going into your discard pile, not into your shuffle. Turn's only going to be like one more turn max. I don't like buying the province at all. Now you give them the opportunity to win. If they hit 8 here, they win. Okay, as it turns out, they didn't because they greened way too early. And so the deck's doing nothing now. But that was a risky play. I would not have given the possibility of winning. I would just buy a duchy and say, you buy province, I'll buy like province duchy or something. All right, GRB wins. Yeah, so even, they only have one draw card in their entire deck. This isn't even really a fully humming engine yet. And even this was still definitely beating DangerKing's deck. I think this is a key lesson of don't buy provinces so early. If there's an engine around you want to build, there's plenty of draw, plenty of action, plenty of trashing. Buying a province turn 6, buying another province turn 8, they might have thought, oh, I'm in the lead. I've got 2 provinces to my opponent's none. I think that was probably the play that lost them the game. Buying provinces early is just kind of like a death knell to your deck. So it looks like it's still 3-1 in 3-2 in DangerKing's favor. GRB is looking to equalize here. DangerKing might be able to pull out the 4-2. What do we got here? Draw, witch, library, action, village, trashing, remodel, plus buy. There's no plus buy, but you can gain cards with remodel. You can also gain cards with artisan. So we do have trashing in the form of remodel, but remodel is a very slow trasher. It's fine at trashing estates. You can turn estates into like a silver or a village or a merchant or a poacher, militia. So remodel is perfectly fine at trashing estates. You get them out of your deck and get you a good card. Remodel is real bad at trashing coppers or curses because they cost 0. At remodel, you gain a card costing up to 2 more. So you trash copper into estate, you turn one junk card to another. So you have to play like remodel on copper into estate, remodel estate into something else. You have to get 2 remodel plays just to trash 1 copper. Now you can turn them into sellers here, but seller is also a card you don't want a bunch of. 1 seller in your deck can be fine, but seller in large quantities is also a junk card, right? This card sort of functionally net -1 draw, right? Every card takes up a spot in your deck, so seller's still taking up a spot in your deck. It's drawing you cards, but it's only drawing you as many as you discarded. So imagine you have a hand of 4 cards and a seller in it. You play the seller, you discard 4 cards, you draw 4 cards. Where are you at? Well, you went from a 5-card hand to a 4-card hand. So you have a bunch of sellers. You're going to be drawing fewer and fewer cards in your hand for each seller you play. So you don't want a lot of sellers either. So remodeling copper into seller is better than an estate, but it's still not good. You still want to be getting the sellers out of your deck. So although there is trashing, it's very limited. What's that say to me? I really, really, really want to play lots of witches here. I'd love to give my opponent a majority of the curses. So this is one of those kingdoms where I think priority number 1 is probably win the curse split. You get a bunch of curses in your opponent's deck, they're going to have a real hard time getting their engine running. So I think opening here is probably malicious silver. That's, silver and malicious silver are about equally likely to hit 5. Well, they're definitely equally likely to hit 5 because malicious sort of functionally is silver for you. But it's getting an attack in, which makes your opponent less likely to hit 5. Let's see what they do. So DangerKing goes malicious silver, I like that. GRB gets the 5-2. It gets to open witch right away. Yeah, I think seller witch is definitely the opening here. If you have 5-2. I like that. DangerKing gets a village. I don't know why they need the village yet. They've only got 1 terminal action card, militia. I mean, if maybe they're anticipating hitting 5 next turn, and so they're thinking I'll get a village to be able to play my witch and my militia. a little bit greedy. As it turns out, they didn't hit 5, they hit 4 again, and now you got a village that's doing nothing for you. All right, they get a witch, but this is kind of late, right? They're getting their witch on their 3rd shuffle, so they're going to see their witch for the first time on the 4th shuffle. GRB got the witch on the 1st shuffle. They're going to see their witch for the first time on the 2nd shuffle. There's nothing DangerKing could do to catch up to that, right? Best case scenario is they get the witch like turn 3 or turn 4. So GRB is always going to be a little bit ahead because they just got the 5-2 opening, and nothing you can do about that. But definitely, I don't want to be waiting around to get my witch. I want to add like a silver or something if I don't have my witch yet. Even multiple witches here is good. I think I want at least 2 witches, maybe even 3 if I hit 5 a 3rd time while there's still a bunch of curses left. 2 most likely. I think most likely 2 is a good number of witches. Only like 1 or 2 curses left in the pile. If you're hitting 5, adding another witch is unlikely to make a difference. But if you can get 3 witches really early on, then I might strongly consider it. 5 here, I'd just take another witch, I think. Library is not terrible. It could help you draw around to your witch more often, but I'd rather just take a 2nd witch. Yeah, so I'd say GRB seems to be in the lead here. I'm not even going to say this is necessarily big misplays. They got the 5-2, which is a little bit of an advantage, and DangerKing only hit 4 twice on turn 3 and turn 4, which is kind of unlucky given their hand. Silver Militia is an opening that's pretty likely to hit 5 once. Could even, with good luck, hit 5 twice on turn 3 and turn 4, and they've hit 5 another time. So I think this is a little bit of poor shuffle luck for DangerKing. They're going to be behind on curses kind of no matter what they do, which is a little unfortunate, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. So now what am I looking to do? I think about now I'd be wanting to add maybe a remodel to maybe get some of those estates out of my deck. Could also consider, if I'm GRB, adding a militia to get in another attack. I think here you probably just want a decent number of witches and villages, get those curses in. Then remodel is never going to get you fully clean. Not in a kingdom like this. You're not going to be able to get rid of all your coppers and curses with just a remodel. But it can at least get you some of those estates out of the way, get you some extra villages or silvers, etc. So I think I'd be wanting to add a remodel about now. 6, this could be artisan. They decided on gold. I don't know about that. Now, Poacher is a card you want to be careful about. They both got 1, I think. Curses are going to run out. So, 1 Poacher is fine. Poacher is a perfectly good card in the short term. A key mistake you could make here would be adding too many Poachers early on. You get like 5 or 6 of them because, oh, look, they're a great card. It's like +1 coin for no drawback. But Curse Pile is going to run. All of a sudden, you have to discard 1 card for every Poacher you play. And maybe eventually 2 cards if like villages or something run out. And so, Poacher is a risky card. I like that they both got 1. I think that's a good number. Maybe 2. But I definitely wouldn't want to be dipping too deep into that pile because they'll start to get real bad after curses run out. Why is GRB saying ouch? Oh, they drew 2 villages with their witch. Yeah, that's a little bit sad. Ooh, this was a misplay. So, DangerKing has exactly 1 witch. And they're buying province. No, don't like that. Anyways, to talk about the misplay. So, they have a hand that's Cellar, Witch, and some cards. And they had a discard pile that had 3 cards left in it. So, remember, the main priority right now, priority number 1, is just win that curse split. Curse is super important here. They're real hard to get rid of. And you can remodel the curses, but that's not super viable here. That'd be real hard to do. So I want to be playing my witch as often as possible. If I've got a witch in hand and 3 cards coming up in my deck before I reshuffle, I want to play that witch, and then next turn I reshuffle my deck. My witch is going right back into that reshuffle. I could see it again potentially as soon as the very next turn. But let's say I draw through my deck. Let's say I drew not just 3 cards or 2 cards with witch, but I drew like 4 cards. And I got 3 cards left in my deck. What happens? I draw 4 of those cards. I draw the 3 cards that are in my deck. I now have to trigger a reshuffle, take all those cards in my discard, flip them over, create a new deck, and then draw a 4th card from that. And now all of a sudden I've got a deck full of lots and lots of cards that are not my witch. The one card I want to play a bunch is that witch. And so now I know the next like 10, 15 cards however many I draw, witch isn't anywhere in there. I have to draw through all of those before I even have a chance of seeing my witch again. The witch could be on the bottom of the next shuffle. I could be drawing through 25 cards before I see my witch. So I would absolutely not want to trigger a shuffle of my deck that did not have my witch in it, because that's a ton of cards I have to draw through that can't be the card I want. So what do you do there? You got this hand. You've got gold, estate, province, cellar, witch. And you know you have 3 cards left. What I want to do is draw exactly to that end of that shuffle. Get all those cards out of the way, and then no more. I want to get a clean shuffle that's got my witch in it. So I would want to play the cellar and discard one of these. Discard one estate to draw like 1 card. Now I'll have 2 cards left in my deck instead of 3, and I'll play the witch and I'll draw the last 2 cards. Now I've drawn all 3 of those cards, but not any more than that. So I didn't trigger a reshuffle. I didn't take all those junk cards in my discard and create a new deck out of them. And so now, when am I going to next reshuffle my deck? After I've discarded all those cards from play. After I've discarded my gold and my witch from play. And then I'm going to reshuffle my deck with the gold and the witch mixed in there. And so you don't trigger that shuffle because you want your witch to be going back into that deck. And I'm perfectly happy drawing 1 less card than I could if it means the witch, and to a lesser degree that gold, are in my deck again and I get to see them more quickly. All right, so now where are we at? So DangerKing is up in points. I strongly suspect that this lead is going to be fleeting. I haven't followed it too exactly, but we saw GRB was ahead in the curse split. I am strongly guessing this might be a repeat of the last game, where DangerKing has gone straight for provinces in a way that's not going to give them sustainable potential to keep that up. Curses are out. Let's see how it ended up. D gains a curse. So DangerKing has 7 curses to GRB's 3. G gains a curse. Yep, 3. They definitely haven't trashed any because there's no remodels taken. So DangerKing has -4 points relative to GRB because they got 7 curses to 3 and 4 more junk cards. That's pretty substantial. That seems like the sort of thing that will likely be game defining here. I would expect GRB to win out in the long term, despite the 11-point deficit. Yeah, DangerKing's got 2 provinces, but they got hands that are looking like this. And I'm thinking that's going to be the bigger deal. GRB's hands aren't looking so great either. I wonder what the problem is with their deck. I definitely want remodel around now. I would have wanted remodel around like a few turns ago. Once I got my second witch, I think I'm starting to think about remodel. Even if you are just turning that curse into an estate, it's not improving your deck quality at all. But like even that, you're scoring 2 points, right? Getting a curse out of your deck, which is -1, getting a estate into your deck, which is +1. Remodel is even like a nice source of points at that point if you're doing nothing else. I'd probably turn it into a cellar more realistically, but that's even still +1 point and turning your junk card into a slightly less bad card. So remodel seems like a pretty good card here. I'm not even sure if DangerKing can afford to discard all those coppers. I mean, like normally you'd want to. Normally copper is a junk card, but given the quality of their deck, is it even true that the average card coming up is better than a copper? I don't know. Probably just like a buy a silver here. Remodel, okay, that's it. I like that. Remodel's good too. Definitely support the remodel buy. GRB, I guess, probably get to gold. Artisan also is pretty reasonable. Artisan's less good this late in the game because the card you're gaining isn't going to have much time to pay off for you. So at this point, gold is pretty defensible over Artisan. Artisan can't gain duchies though, which is not bad. Yeah, they took the gold. That's totally fine. All right, so GRB should play the library before the witch. We saw this problem a little earlier. Well, cellar first, I think. Maybe cellar away that copper. Then you have a 4-card hand. Then you can play the library. Then you can play the witch. Probably just play the witch here. You could cellar 1 copper and then play the witch. Again, you don't want to cellar more than 1 because you had that problem we saw a second ago with DangerKing, where you draw into a new shuffle, which you don't necessarily want to do with that many good cards in your hand. Yeah, so GRB is behind, but they're seeing decently better hand hand quality. So I don't think they're going to be behind forever. DangerKing's just seeing a whole lot of nothing kind of every turn, and it's going to take him a while to fix that. That one province you buy, if you see that 5 times because you bought it super early and shuffled your deck 5 more times, if that were a gold, you'd have had $3 in hand, at least 4 more turns, and then that could have gotten you a gold instead of a silver. That could have gotten you another gold, etc., etc. That pays for itself very fast, and you end up hitting province more times down the road. Early provinces are just At some point in the game, I wouldn't even take a province for free. In a lot of kingdoms, you just offered me like turn 1, turn 2, like here, have like 2 free provinces, just stick them in your deck. I would turn them down because the short-term harm to deck quality of having a junk card in your deck, which province is, can often just over the long term more than undermine its value. Like one more junk card in your deck can easily cause you to lose by more than 1 province down the road, especially in a reasonably strong kingdom. So early provinces are just do not want at all. This could be a duchy or it could be a gold. I wouldn't mind getting a gold here because you're just about to reshuffle your deck the very next turn. It is low enough in the points though that duchy is definitely a very viable consideration as well. Now at this point, you've got at least 4 more turns, maybe 5 coming up with 25 cards in your deck. At this point in the game, if I'm hitting something less than 8, I'm buying duchy because you see, a $6 hand now, you buy gold. There's a good chance you don't even ever see that gold again. If you do see the gold again, you're going to see it maybe once. You're probably not drawing through a 30-card deck 2 more times. And so at this point in the game, I want duchy over gold, no question. Like this is the duchy for sure, unless they hit 8, which actually they will. They'll hit 8. Okay, so this is a province now. If they hit less than 8, that'd be a duchy. This should be a duchy as well. For both of them. Both DangerKing and GRB should be buying duchy here, I think. Library, don't like that at all. Like, think about it from your perspective. If you're GRB, if you hit province once, you're up to 18, 18 to 20. If you both take one of the last 2 provinces, you'll still lose. What you need to get here is, you need to get that province, and then you need to get another province and a duchy. So you need to get like 2 provinces and a duchy in the time your opponent gets 1 province. Very doable with your deck, but not doable if you're not buying the duchy. You need at least 1 more duchy for sure here to win. You could get all 3 provinces, but I wouldn't bank on that. That might happen, but it's nothing I would want to count on. Remodel. Remodel is not a bad late game card. You can turn like a village or a poacher or whatever into duchies. I don't hate adding it. It's definitely better than library, but we're late enough in the game that you might not even see these cards again. Game's coming to a close. You have a thick deck. You draw through maybe 1 more time. So you're going to see that remodel probably like once before the game ends, the library once before the game ends. If the remodel gets you a duchy, but you spend a duchy, you passed up buying a duchy to get it, it's not really net helping you all that much. So although absolutely early in the game, remodel would be a good card, I think we're at the point in the game where I just want to take the green cards because we're now in the in game. DangerKing also not taking duchies now. Interesting. They kept their copper but discarded their poacher. That doesn't make any sense. So the way I think about this is, poacher is +1 coin, copper is +1 coin. Copper does not draw you a card. Poacher draws you a card, but it makes you discard a card. Copper doesn't cost an action. Poacher gives you an action, but costs an action. So both of them are like +1 coin, -1 card. That's how I would think of copper and then poacher at this stage in the game. The difference is poacher lets you draw a new card and then discard a card you didn't like. So whereas copper, you have copper plus whatever other cards in hand happen to be with copper. Poacher is giving you sort of a copper's effect, but also letting you switch out whatever the worst card is in your hand for whatever card you draw if you want to. So Poacher is still a better card than copper, even if you're discarding a card. I would have either discarded all four, or if I was leaving one back, I would leave the Poacher over the copper. It's still better. In this situation, I think play the Seller, discard, definitely Curse on other Seller, maybe also discard the Poacher. DangerKing's just really got to hit 8. If they hit 8, they're in not a bad spot. They buy one province, then they can like remodel a province into a province, and then they can win. That's how they would win. The question is how their deck can hit 8. Oh, they also draw a remodel without a province in hand. That's unfortunate. You probably remodel into like a duchy at this point. GRB took a big gamble here playing that library. It paid off for them. They got province, but I would have just played the militia, get an attack in, by a duchy. So now the question is, whoever buys this next province is almost certainly going to win. Given the quality of the decks, I'm going to guess that's GRB. There's some outside chance DangerKing could do it, but it seems less likely. How many remodels do they have? I think it's 2-1. Yeah, so DangerKing's already seen that remodel too, so they don't have another remodel coming up. That's unfortunate. I assume GRB is worried that they have like a gold in hand. They could remodel gold in the province and win. Unfortunately, they don't have all too many golds. Gains a gold, DD. They got 3 early on, and then most of the rest are G. G ends up with more total golds because they built for longer. So not an impossible scenario, but one that did not come to fruition. Yeah, this is true. The reason for that is your opponent prioritized Witch more, they got in more curses, and you bought provinces early. Now, to be fair, some of that was sort of inevitable because the opponent did get that early Witch with the 5-2, and they did hit 4 twice on turn 3 and turn 4, which is just kind of bad luck. So they had some bad luck at the beginning that caused them to inevitably get behind on curses. But definitely going into provinces early did not help things. The provinces were definitely adding fuel to the fire of poor deck quality. Oof, poor hand here. They hit 7. Yeah, so now they're just kind of rolling dice until one of them hits 8, but I think GRB is rolling with the dice that are better loaded. Oh my goodness, DangerKing pulls it off after all. They've got it in hand. Wow, okay then. Now this should not scare you. If I see my opponent buy 3 provinces early on, I'm like, they've lost the game. Now as it turns out, DangerKing's got the win here. They gain a silver with the artisan. Hopefully they see it. They get in 1 turn soon because GRB's got 3 golds in hand. They're just gonna barely. No! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Don't gain a duchy. You have the win. You gain a silver. That's silver and 2 golds. That's 8. You had the win in hand. No! Oh no! DangerKing actually ended up having it, and then they threw it away. Now GRB will surely buy province here. They didn't need to play the poacher. Okay, well, DangerKing snatched victory from the jaws of defeat and then threw it right back. All right, well, that's the series. They ended up 3-3. Nice even split. Take away from that game, or take away from most of these games, just don't buy provinces so early. The short-term benefit in points is just outweighed by the long-term decline in deck quality. No question. Alrighty, so I just want to play through one of those kingdoms that I was talking about. I think this was the second game I had recorded, and I wanted to demonstrate the engine I was describing that neither of them attempted to build and how it might look. So we're just going to load the game from Decision 0. We'll add a bot, and we'll play it out. All right, So we said you can build an engine with just throne room with no other villages, and I wanted to show how that's possible. We'll open Chapel Militia, which we said was likely to be the best opening. And then I think the goal is going to be to get Artisan relatively fast, get some throne rooms in the deck, and then start building from there. I could get Witch already to get an attack in. I've already got 2 terminals, and Chapel and Militia are already perfectly fine here. I think I'm just going to take the silver. Trash all of these quite happily. Now, should I trash all of these? Down here, I've got Militia, Silver, Estate, Copper. That's 5 money. I think I'll trash all of these, and then if I buy a merchant next turn, or even a throne room, I can afford Artisan. You definitely do want to be a little careful with Chapel about getting over trashed. That's definitely a possibility that you should not rule out. So I could Chapel away the estate and buy a merchant, or I could Militia attack and buy a throne room. Either gets me enough money in my deck to afford Artisan next turn. I think I value staying thin a bit. Both of those seem plausible to me. I'm not going to say one was clearly better than the other. Alright, so now we start building. This turn we get an Artisan, and we can start gaining multiple cards per turn. And to be fair, the bot is, I think, very bad at playing games with Chapel. It's not good at utilizing trashing effectively, and can often end up just trashing its own starting cards. Or trashing its own high value cards. So it's not like this is going to be the most competitive demonstration of anything. Alright, so now what do I want? I could just take a second throne room, for sure. I'd happily play throne room, Artisan, gain like a Witch, throne room, that. That might be a little bit greedy because that only works if I line up both throne rooms in the starting hand. So maybe let's take another merchant here. Alrighty. So here we've already got a good example of how throne room can function as a village. I'm going to throne room this merchant. I'm back to a 5-card hand, but now I've got 2 actions to spend. And so I can get in 2 plays here. I could consider Artisan plus Chapel the copper away. Could consider Artisan plus getting a Militia attack. I think I'll definitely be top decking a throne room for next turn. And I gotta get in this Chapel play at some point. Might as well do it now. And we can get in a Witch to start cursing them. Alright, so now we've got another good demonstration of how to use throne room effectively. If I play throne room on Witch right now, I'll draw the rest of my deck, but my turn will be over because I'll have spent my only action. If I play throne room on throne room, I now get to throne room 2 cards. So I can throne room this Witch first. Now I've got a second throne room play to resolve. So now if I throne room the merchant, or any card with plus action, which in this case happens to be a merchant, but could be like Harbinger or something. Now I've got actions again, and now I can play these cards. So now what do I want? Probably just another throne room. Top deck that. Don't want to play my Militia because that draws the throne room. I'd rather leave it on the top of my deck. I've already got 6 coins. 2 from Silver, 2 from Militia, 2 from this merchant because I played it twice. That's all I could conceivably want to afford. I think I'll take a second Artisan here. Now I could conceivably gain up to 4 cards here if I throne room both my Artisans. I'll play 1 merchant because I'd love to be able to find 2 throne rooms. I couldn't, so I'll just throne room the merchant. Now I've got 2 actions. So I'll just play the Witch once. I really want to find a second. Oh, this is really unfortunate. So my last throne room was really on the bottom of my deck. I really wanted to be able to play throne room, Artisan, other stuff. Because as we saw, when you use throne room on throne room, you're getting a lot of extra actions out of that. And we had a kind of unfortunate shuffle here. Nothing we can do about that. We can go ahead and seed next turn effectively. Top deck a throne room, top deck a Witch, and we can go ahead and buy probably just another throne room, honestly. Alright, this is a nice starting hand. So we will go throne room, Witch, throne room again, Witch again, sure. Throne room again. You can play Artisan, gain a throne room, top deck something, gain maybe another Witch, top deck something, throne room, Artisan, gain like a throne room, gain like a merchant, play our throne room, draw all those cards. Now, as it happens, they've got a moat on top, so they're kind of lucky. But like, imagine they didn't have that moat there. We've given out 6 curses this turn, right? Eventually, they're going to have a hand that doesn't have moat, and this deck is just going to destroy theirs. They're going to get all the curses all at once. All right. Into actions. We've now got like 9 to spin. I could start on a provinces already. Is that too early? I'm not sure. Now, the fact that they've got a province, should not worry you at all, right? 1 province in a bad deck is nothing. This deck can easily outscore it long term. How many? Let's see. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 throne rooms. I've got 3 draw cards. I might just add a 4th witch here, just to make sure my turn can be likely to kick off. Because this deck is a little rickety. You got to find like multiple throne rooms to set it off right. All right, let's see if they got a moat in hand. All right, so this turn's about to be painful for them. We'll play a witch again. Throne room, throne room. They're gonna take the last 8 curses in 1 turn. Yeah, let's just take some. We actually might be able to pile out here pretty soon. Just gain 2 merchants. So we played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 throne rooms. That means we'll be able to play 6 total action cards twice. We played 4 of those, so I can afford to play this witch twice, and I won't be out of actions, because I'll still have 1 action left to play, because I had 6 throne rooms, 5 actions resolved, so now I get 1 more throne room play coming up. So now I can throne room that. Now I've got 2 left, so I can throne room this artisan. We'll go ahead and gain, let's just put 2 throne rooms on top. And we'll play militia. And we're threatening to pile out next turn. We can easily gain these 3. And we'll have the points lead because they've got 10 curses in their deck. Now, they don't have an artisan, and so they cannot possibly gain more than 1 card per turn. So I could safely just take another merchant here, bring the piles down to 2. At most, they can gain 1 of those. They can't gain both of those and buy a province, whereas we could. All right, and so now it's just a matter of throne room, throne room, throne room, draw a bunch of cards, play a bunch of cards, draw some more cards, and now we will easily win this game. Throne room, artisan, gain a throne room, gain a merchant, throne room, draw more cards, throne room. We can gain some duchies for the points, not that we need them. Play the merchant, play the militia. Don't need to play the chapel. Piles are empty. We've got a points lead. We've got 16 to spin, which is more than we could conceivably want. We buy the province. So this is how that engine works, and kind of demonstrates the strength of throne room if you play it effectively.